While everyone's betting on China and India to dominate Asia's future, 6 Philippine cities are quietly preparing to eat their lunch by 2030. I know what you're thinking. The Philippines? Really? Yeah, really. And here's why you should care. In the last 3 years alone, $847 billion in foreign investment has been redirected away from China. Not to Vietnam. Not to Indonesia. To these 6 cities I'm about to show you. And the craziest part? Most people have no idea it's happening. Meet Carlos. 34-year-old software engineer from Manila. 2 years ago, a Shanghai tech firm offered him a $120,000 salary. He said no. His friends called him insane. His parents thought he'd lost his mind. Today, he's making the same money in Manila, living in a beachfront condo, and spending weekends with family instead of trapped in a smog-filled megacity. Carlos told me something that stopped me cold. 2 years ago, I would have been crazy to turn that down. Today, staying home was the best decision of my life. What's happening in these 6 cities isn't just growth. It's a complete economic realignment. And it's not me saying that. It's buried on page 47 of the World Bank's latest Southeast Asia report. The report projects that by 2030, the Philippine urban corridor will account for 4.3% of Asia's total GDP. That might not sound like much until you realize that's larger than Thailand's entire economy. But here's what made me dig deeper. The demographic advantage. China's median age is 39 and climbing. India's infrastructure can't keep up with its population. The Philippines? Median age of 25 with 92% literacy rate and the 3rd highest English proficiency in Asia. So let's count down from number 6 to the city that has what China and India are desperately trying to buy but can never have. City number 6, Iloilo. This city of 500,000 people was literally ignored by investors until 2021. But it's the Philippines' secret tech weapon. Here's the stat that should wake you up. Iloilo's IT and business process outsourcing sector grew 340% since 2020. That's according to the Philippine Statistics Authority's latest data from 2024. 340%. But let me tell you what that actually means on the ground. Meet Sophia. 28 years old. She spent 6 years grinding it out in Bangalore as a software developer. 12-hour days in a cramped office where the air conditioning barely worked and power cuts happened twice a week. Her commute? 2 hours each way through traffic that made Los Angeles look efficient. Last year, she moved to Iloilo. Asked her why. In India, I was one of 5 million coders fighting for scraps. The competition was insane. Fresh graduates willing to work for nothing just to get experience. Companies are literally begging me to choose them. I had 4 job offers in my first week. I work 8-hour days, my office overlooks the beach, and I'm saving more money than I ever did in Bangalore. The math is simple but brutal for India and China. Labor costs in Iloilo are 60% cheaper than Shenzhen. But here's the kicker. English proficiency is at 94%. That's higher than Singapore. Higher than Hong Kong. And it's not just call centers anymore. Iloilo landed a major win in 2024. Accenture opened a 2,000-seat advanced analytics center. They're doing AI development, machine learning, data science. This is high-value work that was supposed to stay in Bangalore and Beijing. Picture this. On one side of your screen, you've got a gleaming BPO campus right on the waterfront in Iloilo. Modern glass buildings. Clean streets. Palm trees swaying in the breeze. Workers taking lunch breaks on the beach. On the other side, a cramped Bangalore office building where 50 people share one bathroom and the nearest green space is a highway median. But the real advantage isn't the beaches or the lower rent. It's the air quality. Iloilo's air quality index sits at 15. Delhi's? 175. Shanghai averages 93. You can actually breathe in Iloilo. You can see the stars at night. Your kids aren't developing asthma by age 5. The median age is 24. Hungry. Eager to prove themselves. And here's something nobody talks about. The retention rate. Companies in Iloilo report 68% lower employee turnover than their Bangalore or Shenzhen offices. But Because people actually want to live there. Sophia told me something that stuck with me. In Bangalore, everyone was always planning their exit. Saving money to move to the US or Europe. My friends are buying houses. Starting families. Building lives. We're not just surviving. We're actually living. If you think that's impressive, wait until you hear about City Number 5's manufacturing boom that's making Chinese factory owners physically relocate across the South China Sea. City Number 5, Clark. Former US Air Force Base. Abandoned for years. Jungle was literally taking over the runways. But it's becoming Asia's answer to Silicon Valley meets Detroit. When Apple started diversifying its supply chains away from China in 2023, something remarkable happened. 23 new semiconductor plants opened in Clark. 23. In less than 2 years. The Asian Development Bank published a study in March 2024. Their projection? 580% manufacturing growth in Clark by 2030. Not 58%. 580. Let me introduce you to Chen Wei. 42-year-old factory manager from Guangdong province. He ran a mid-sized electronics manufacturing operation in Shenzhen for 15 years. Built it from nothing. Employed 300 people. Then the tariffs hit. Then electricity costs doubled. Then the local government started demanding larger and larger contributions to stay in their good graces. He moved his entire manufacturing operation from China to Clark last year. The tariffs were killing us. We couldn't compete anymore. Every month, our margins got thinner. I was working 18-hour days just to break even. Zero tariffs to the United States. Electricity costs half of what we paid in China. And you know what's wild? Workers actually show up on time. Every single day. In China, we had constant turnover. People would train for 3 months, then leave for a job that paid 50 yuan more. People stay. But it's not just Chinese manufacturers. Korean firms are moving in. Japanese companies are expanding. Even some American manufacturers who offshored to China in the 90s are coming back to Asia through Clark. Clark just finished a $4.2 billion infrastructure package. Modern international airport that can handle wide-body cargo planes. Dedicated cargo rail line connecting to the port. Smart city electrical grid with 99.7% uptime. This isn't some developing zone where the power cuts out during peak production. This is first world infrastructure. Here's the crazy part, and I had to fact-check this 3 times because it seemed impossible. Clark's container shipping time to Los Angeles is now faster than Shenzhen's. By 14 hours. Let that sink in. A Philippine city that was literally jungle 10 years ago is outcompeting China's manufacturing capital on logistics. How is that possible? Geography. Clark is closer to the Pacific shipping lanes. The port of Subic Bay is less congested than Shenzhen's ports. And there's no South China Sea territorial dispute complicating shipping routes. And the economics? Clark operates as a free port zone. Corporate tax rate? 5%. China's? 25%. India's? 22%. If you're a manufacturer looking at your spreadsheet, the decision makes itself. But there's a dark side no one's talking about. Infrastructure is growing faster than housing. Some workers are commuting 2 hours because there's nowhere to live yet. Rental prices in nearby towns have tripled in 3 years. Young workers are sleeping 4 to a room just to afford rent. Chen Wei admitted this to me. We're building factories faster than we're building communities. In 5 years, Clark could be another soulless industrial zone where nobody actually wants to live. Just factories and warehouses. That's my biggest fear. That problem doesn't exist in City Number 4, which has the opposite superpower, and it's changing everything about Asia's service economy. City Number 4, Cebu City. While Mumbai drowns in monsoon floods and Beijing freezes through sub-zero winters, this city runs 24/7, 365 days a year. Cebu sits at the crossroads of Asia. 4-hour flight to Tokyo. 4 hours to Singapore. 4 hours to Hong Kong. 4.5 to Sydney. The geographic advantage is insane. But here's where it gets personal, and this is the story that made me realize something fundamental is shifting. Maria Santos, 39 years old, call center team lead in Cebu. She manages a team of 80 customer service reps for a U.S. insurance company. Her counterpart in Mumbai manages a similar-sized team for the same company. They talk sometimes. Compare notes. Coordinate on major projects. My colleague in India works 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. to match U.S. business hours. She told me she hasn't had dinner with her family in 3 years. She wakes up her kids just to say goodnight before she leaves for work. She gets home when they're getting ready for school. On weekends, she's so exhausted she can barely function. She's 34 years old and she told me she's just counting down to retirement. Maria paused when she told me this. You could see it bothered her. Me? I work afternoon shifts, 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. Perfect time zone alignment with the U.S. East Coast. I see my kids every single morning. We have breakfast together. I take them to school. My husband and I have dinner together 4 nights a week. On weekends, we go to the beach. I'm not just surviving my job. I actually have a life. The numbers tell the story. The Philippines' customer service industry is worth $28 billion. Cebu controls 38% of that. That's data from the 2024 BPO Association report. McKinsey Global Institute published something shocking in August 2024. They predict Cebu will overtake Bangalore as the world's #1 BPO hub by 2029. Not because of cost. Bangalore is still slightly cheaper, but because of efficiency, quality, and here's the key word, sustainability. Employee burnout in Indian BPO centers is approaching 43% according to a 2024 NASCOM study. In Cebu, 18%. But here's what really matters, and why Chinese and Indian workers are literally quitting their jobs to relocate here. Cost of living in Cebu is 52% lower than Shenzhen, 45% lower than Mumbai. A comfortable 2-bedroom apartment near the business district? $600 a month. In Mumbai, that same apartment costs $1,200. In Shenzhen? $1,800. English fluency? 96%. And it's not just conversational English. It's business English. Technical English. The kind of fluency where you can handle complex customer complaints, navigate legal terminology, explain technical problems. And the weather? This matters more than you think. Tropical year-round. Consistent temperatures. No monsoon season shutdowns. No winter heating costs. That last part is critical, and it's something the business reports miss. India loses significant productivity every year to monsoons. June to September, whole regions flood. Infrastructure collapses. Workers can't get to offices. Power grids fail. I talked to a BPO executive who ran operations in both Mumbai and Cebu. He told me, in Mumbai, we had to build in a 15% productivity loss during monsoon season. Every year. Like clockwork. Flooding would knock out power to entire districts. Employees couldn't get to work because roads were underwater. In Cebu, 365 days of operation. We hit our targets every single month. Imagine living somewhere work-life balance isn't a myth. Where you're not choosing between career success and seeing your children grow up. Where your mental health isn't slowly destroyed by impossible schedules and toxic air. That's Cebu's value proposition. And multinational companies are listening. But if Cebu is impressive, city number 3 is literally being built from the ground up to rival Dubai. And it's the most ambitious urban project in Asia right now. City number 3, New Clark City. A $14 billion smart city that didn't exist 5 years ago. By 2030, it'll be home to 2 million people and Asia's most advanced tech infrastructure. This isn't an upgrade to an existing city. This isn't renovation or modernization. This is building a city from absolute scratch with everything we've learned about urban planning in the 21st century. The UN Habitat 2024 report called New Clark City Asia's most ambitious sustainable city project. Let me break down what that actually means. From the ground up, complete fiber optic backbone installed before any buildings went up. 100% renewable energy grid, solar farms, wind, geothermal. Autonomous transport systems being designed into the street layout. Disaster-resilient construction that can withstand Category 5 typhoons. Water recycling systems. Vertical farms integrated into residential zones. This is the city planners' design in their dreams and never get to build because existing infrastructure and politics get in the way. Meet Rafael Torres, 31-year-old urban planner. Graduated top of his class from the National University of Singapore's Urban Design Program. Singapore offered him $15,000 a month. Major firms in London and Dubai were recruiting him. He took a job in New Clark City for $8,000 a month. Everyone thought I was crazy. My professors, my classmates, my parents definitely thought I'd lost my mind. But in Singapore, I'd spend 30 years tweaking existing systems, trying to retrofit smart city technology into Victorian-era infrastructure, fighting political battles over every lamppost. I'm literally designing neighborhoods from scratch. I designed the traffic flow for an entire district that will house 50,000 people. My grandkids will grow up in a city I helped design. You can't put a price on that. The heavy hitters are already moving in. Mitsubishi opened a regional headquarters. Samsung has a research and development center. Nvidia just opened a data center there, and you don't put a data center somewhere unless you're confident in the infrastructure and political stability. Projections show a $62 billion GDP by 2030. For perspective, that would make New Clark City's economy larger than Lithuania's. Now imagine this. A city where your car communicates with traffic lights to optimize flow. No sitting at red lights when there's no cross traffic. Where every building has solar panels and batteries, feeding excess power back to the grid. Where typhoons, those devastating storms that hit the Philippines every year, can't even touch you because the entire city is engineered to withstand them. New Clark City is built 150 kilometers from Manila. That's not random. That distance is carefully calculated. It's far enough inland to be safe from sea level rise. It's in a seismically stable zone. It's elevated enough that even worst-case flooding scenarios can't reach it. It's designed to handle 200-year storm events. While Shanghai worries about sinking, and it is measurably sinking, while Mumbai battles catastrophic flooding every year, while Jakarta literally plans to abandon itself and move the capital because the city is disappearing into the ocean, New Clark City is being built for the climate crisis. The master plan includes green corridors, so no resident is more than 5 minutes from a park. Mixed-use zoning means you can live, work, and shop within walking distance. Public transport is electric and autonomous. Critics say it's too ambitious, too expensive, doomed to fail. The Philippine government will run out of money. Corruption will kill it. It's a fantasy. That's exactly what they said about City Number 2 when it was empty lots and abandoned military buildings 8 years ago. Now it has more Fortune 500 headquarters than Hong Kong's Central District. And Beijing is watching it very, very nervously. City Number 2, Bonifacio Global City. In 2016, this was vacant land. Crumbling military base leftovers. Wild grass. Stray dogs. Nothing. Today, it's a $20 billion financial district that's quietly stealing Hong Kong's crown while the world watches other stories. Meet David Park, 45-year-old Korean fintech CEO. His company, which I can't name for confidentiality reasons, processes $2 billion in transactions monthly across Southeast Asia. They had offices in Seoul, Shanghai, and Mumbai. China was regulatory hell. Every single week, new rules. New restrictions you had to comply with by yesterday. The government could shut you down on a whim if you said the wrong thing, hired the wrong person, expanded into the wrong sector. I had a friend whose company was seized, literally seized, because he made a social media post criticizing local corruption. India? The infrastructure would collapse constantly. Power outages in the middle of trading hours. Internet failures during critical transfers. I couldn't run a 24/7 operation there. I was losing sleep every night worrying about what would break next. He moved his headquarters to BGC in 2023. I got all my permits in 3 weeks. 3 weeks. In China, it took me 9 months and uncountable bribes. My office internet is faster than my Seoul headquarters. 99.9% uptime. And nobody's threatening to nationalize my company. Nobody's demanding I hand over my user data. Nobody's asking me what political party I support. The data is staggering. Bonifacio Global City is seeing 30% year-over-year office space absorption. That's from CBRE Philippines 2024 Commercial Real Estate Report. For context, Manhattan averages 8% in a good year. Average rent? $42 per square foot. Hong Kong? 108. Shanghai? 65. Singapore? 92. You're getting first-world facilities at developing nation prices, and that gap isn't closing, it's widening. The crime rate? 0.002%. That's lower than Singapore. Lower than Tokyo. You can walk through BGC at 3 a.m. and the biggest danger is tripping over a curb. Bloomberg Businessweek ran a feature in January 2025. The headline? Asia's most underrated financial hub, how Manila became the safe harbor. They interviewed 24 CEOs who'd moved operations from Hong Kong and Shanghai. But here's the part that terrifies Beijing, and you can see it in their state media's increasingly hostile coverage of the Philippines. Since 2021, 847 Hong Kong financial firms have relocated to BGC. That's from the Hong Kong Trade Development Council's own data from 2024. 847. These aren't tiny startups. These are established firms with decades of history, managing billions in assets. But I asked this question to everyone I interviewed. The answers were remarkably consistent. English language contracts that are actually enforceable in independent courts. A legal system modeled on U.S. law where precedent matters and judges can't be pressured by political officials. Stable democracy where elections are messy but real. Property rights you can depend on. Freedom to criticize the government without your business license getting revoked. David Park put it bluntly, in China, you own your company until the party decides you don't. In BGC, property rights are sacred. That's not hyperbole. That's the difference between sleeping soundly and waking up every morning wondering if today's the day they come for you. But if stability and legal protection are what you want, if you're looking for the one advantage that China and India are desperately trying to manufacture with smart cities and special economic zones but can never actually create through policy alone, nothing compares to city number one. Because this city has something you can't build with infrastructure spending. You can't create it with tax incentives. And no amount of government control or 5-year plans can replicate it. It's the one thing that actually matters in the 21st century economy. City number 1, Manila. The capital everyone wrote off as too chaotic, too polluted, too dysfunctional. The city that was supposed to be a cautionary tale about developing world failure. The place every consultant report said to avoid. It's now outpacing Shanghai in one critical metric, innovation velocity. And when I tell you why, you'll understand why this terrifies authoritarian governments. Let me paint you the picture everyone remembers. Traffic so bad it takes 3 hours to go 10 kilometers. Air pollution so thick you can taste it. Flooding that turns streets into rivers every monsoon. Infrastructure from the 1970s held together with duct tape and prayers. Poverty. Chaos. Dysfunction. Every investor report from 2015 to 2020 said the same thing. Skip Manila. Put your money in Singapore, Shanghai, Mumbai. Manila is a lost cause. Then came the 2023 infrastructure revolution. $45 billion. New subway lines already under construction. Airport expansion tripling capacity. Flood control systems using Dutch engineering. 6 new expressways. A coastal protection barrier. But that's not the real story. Infrastructure is just money and engineering. You can build that anywhere if you have the political will. The real story is what infrastructure enables. Meet Ana Reyes. 26 years old. Biotech founder. PhD in molecular biology from MIT. Her dissertation on stem cell differentiation won awards. Stanford wanted her for their research faculty. Tenure track. Fulop. $2.5 million in startup funding. Shanghai offered triple that. $7.5 million. State-of-the-art facility. Unlimited resources. Everything a researcher could dream of. She chose Manila. Started her company with $800,000 from a Philippine venture fund. At Stanford, I'd be one researcher among thousands. Publish or perish. Fight for grants. Play academic politics. In Shanghai? Sure, the money was incredible. The facilities were better than anything in the US. But I'd never own my intellectual property. Everything I discovered would belong to the Chinese government. They made that very clear. And honestly, I was scared. I'd heard too many stories about researchers who asked the wrong questions or published results the government didn't like. I wasn't willing to risk that. She paused, choosing her words carefully. Here in Manila, I own everything I create. Every patent. Every breakthrough. It's mine. I don't fear a midnight knock on my door because my research contradicted some official narrative. I can hire who I want. Publish what I want. Collaborate with who I want. That freedom is worth more than all the funding in the world. Let me hit you with the numbers that actually matter. Startup funding in the Philippines, $8.9 billion in 2024. In 2020, $1.2 billion. That's a 740% increase in 4 years. Unicorn companies, startups valued over $1 billion. The Philippines had 0 in 2019. In 2025, 7. And 3 more are projected to hit unicorn status by year-end. Tech talent pool, 2.1 million people with 89% English proficiency. That's from the Philippines Startup Ecosystem Report published in January 2025. The World Economic Forum released their 2024 rankings. They analyzed over 500 cities globally. Manila came in number 3 for emerging innovation ecosystems. Number 3 in the entire world. Behind only Austin, Texas, and Bangalore. But here's what no one wants to admit out loud, what the diplomatic cables carefully dance around, what every international business conference avoids saying directly. Chinese companies are fleeing CCP control. Indian firms are escaping regulatory chaos and infrastructure collapse. And they're coming to Manila. Real examples. Not hypotheticals. TikTok moved its regional headquarters from Beijing to Manila in 2024. They didn't announce it. They didn't hold a press conference. They just quietly relocated 300 employees and all their Southeast Asian operations. 12 major Indian IT firms opened Manila offices since 2023. Infosys, Wipro, Tech Mahindra. These aren't satellite offices. These are major operational centers. A Chinese AI company I can't name relocated their entire research team to Manila last year because they were tired of government officials demanding backdoor access to their algorithms. Why is this different from every other emerging market story you've heard over the last 30 years? Why isn't Manila just another Bangkok or Kuala Lumpur or Jakarta? 2 words, property rights. And I don't just mean you can own land. I mean intellectual property. Ideas. Innovations. The things that actually matter in a knowledge economy. When you invest in Manila, build a company in Manila, create something in Manila, you're not worried about the government deciding your industry is too important to national security and nationalizing it. You're not scared of criticizing poor policy and having your business license revoked. You're not looking over your shoulder wondering if your success makes you a target. Picture this split screen. On one side, a Manila entrepreneur pitching her startup to investors. She's criticizing government red tape, demanding better infrastructure, calling out corruption, speaking freely. The investors are nodding, taking notes. On the other side, a Chinese founder in Shenzhen, carefully choosing every word in his pitch, never criticizing anything, praising government initiatives he privately thinks are disasters, knowing his social credit score and his company's future hang in the balance. That's the difference. And you can't quantify that difference in GDP statistics or infrastructure spending. Ana Reyes told me something I haven't been able to stop thinking about. In authoritarian systems, innovation happens despite the government. Scientists and entrepreneurs succeed by staying quiet, by not threatening power, by playing it safe. In Manila, Innovation happens because of the system. We're messy. We're chaotic. Our democracy is loud and argumentative and frustrating. But that chaos creates space for ideas that would be suppressed elsewhere. That's our competitive advantage, and China and India can't replicate it no matter how much money they spend. The Asian Development Bank released their latest projections in February 2025. Manila metro area GDP will surpass Mumbai by 2031. Not might. This isn't about the Philippines beating China or India. Those are massive economies with incredible strengths and massive populations. This is about what happens when you combine Asia's best talent pool with actual freedom. When engineers and entrepreneurs and innovators can build without fear. When they own what they create. When they can speak truth to power without disappearing. That's Manila's superpower. And you can't replicate it with 5-year plans and government mandates and special economic zones. But before you pack your bags, before you move your investment portfolio, before you tell your company to open a Manila office, we need to talk about the risks. Because I'd be lying if I told you this is a guaranteed success story. Political stability in the Philippines is still fragile. Democracy is loud and messy and sometimes dysfunctional. The 2025 midterm elections matter. A lot. One administration that backslides on reforms, that returns to the old patronage systems, that lets corruption run wild again, that could derail this entire momentum. Infrastructure outside these 6 cities? Still decades behind. If you're not in one of these urban centers, you're dealing with developing world conditions. Rural areas still lack reliable electricity. Internet access is spotty. Roads are terrible. Brain drain is a real risk. If wages don't keep rising fast enough to match cost of living increases, that English-speaking, highly educated talent pool will leave. 10% of Philippine citizens already work overseas. If the opportunity at home doesn't match the opportunity abroad, they'll leave again. J.P. Morgan's Asia Pacific report from December 2024 lists execution risk as their #1 concern. The Philippines has a long history of big plans that don't materialize. Roads announced but never built. Projects that run out of funding halfway through. Grand visions that collapse under corruption and mismanagement. These 6 cities are making all the right moves right now. The momentum is real. The data supports the optimism. But success isn't guaranteed. And here's the alternative scenario nobody wants to think about. What if China's economy stabilizes? What if they successfully transition from manufacturing to services, from exports to domestic consumption? What if India actually fixes its infrastructure mess, gets serious about governance reform, streamlines its regulatory nightmare? What if the factors driving this shift, geopolitical tension, supply chain diversification, democratic recession, reverse themselves? I'm not going to lie to you and say the Philippines is a sure bet. It's not. It's a calculated risk with incredible upside and real downside. These 6 cities could reshape Asia's economic landscape. Or they could be footnotes in the story of Asia's giants maintaining their dominance. If you had to move your business to one of these 6 cities tomorrow, Iloilo, Clark, Cebu, New Clark City, BGC, or Manila, which one would you choose and why? Think about what matters to you. Cost? Talent? Infrastructure? Quality of life? Political stability? Innovation ecosystem? Drop your answer in the comments because I'm reading every single one. And the top answer gets featured in next week's video where I break down the biggest economic mistakes countries make when they're on the verge of breakthrough success. And if you think I'm wrong about China and India, if you think I'm overestimating the Philippines or missing critical risks, tell me exactly where my data is off. Bring sources. Bring numbers. I love a good debate backed by facts. Also, 90% of you watching right now aren't subscribed. If you want to catch the next geopolitical shift before everyone else does, if you want to understand where the world is moving before it's obvious, hit that subscribe button. Because 5 years ago, everyone laughed at the idea of the Philippines competing with Asia's giants. Dismissed it as absurd. Impossible. A joke. But the joke's on them.